Hi, everyone. Today we have an exciting talk story with some ladies that do a lot of parent support here in Oahu. I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you and say the name of their organization. I know you do parent support, but tell us a little bit about where you do it and what kind of parents you support.
All right. Well, I'm Kahea, and that is my partner, Debbie, and we are Omana Parent Support Group. Debbie, you want to explain what we do?
Sure. So we are actually sort of the brainchild, if you will, of the Autism District Education Specialist for Windward District. And this is someone that knew both of us and didn't know that we knew each other. Yeah. So approached us separately. And then we're like, hey, I know her, kind of thing. And Omana was born in January of 2018. So we're 3 years old. Initially, we were conceived with the intention of serving parents that have kids on the autism spectrum that have special education services and or 504 in the Windward District. Because again, since the Autism District Education Specialist, right, she really saw the need for parents to be supported. And I believe that a program they tried it with a professional running it and really didn't get parents. So the vision was parent-led, parent-run, right? Because, we don't know everything, but with being a little older and having older kids, because our kids are adults, we have a lot of experiences and we don't always have all the answers, but we know what didn't work. And we also know some of the, not tricks, but if you will, but the things that kind of don't make sense or you can't really find, it's not written down, but it's helpful. So now with COVID, because we've gone completely virtual, so we did the pivot last year, like everyone else, we're virtual. So we're not paying for a meeting space. We're not buying food, refreshments, and childcare, which was the bulk of the funding. And then I am contracted through a private contract. I'm not a Department of Education employee. I have a consulting business. So Omana was born.
So what is 504? You said within the school district, but also 504?
So a 504 plan is a plan for a student with a disability who does not require specially designed instruction. So this could
need accommodations, basically.
Yeah. And related services. So you could have autism, be on track for, let's say, a high school diploma. What you need is accommodation so that you pass your classes successfully. Maybe there's some kind of behavior plan that also helps support you. And maybe you need speech services. You can get all that through a 504. And when you go on to college, a 504 plan is an accepted record to take to the disability counselor to show them what accommodations you need as a learner. So if you need extra time, then you can have your tests and exams given to you in their testing centers. And so that you really need that documentation.
Mm-hmm. I never
you can't just show up and say,
Well, that's interesting.
It is. It's really important to know.
There's a question a lot of parents are confused about, and that during the school years, of course, you're in the Department of Education, but when could you or why would you also go to the Department of Health and try and get in the waiver program? How does that work? Because that's in the old days when my daughter was in school. I can't remember even knowing about that.
Well, I was a teacher. I came from the Big Island 20 years ago and came over here, transferred as a teacher to the school I was at. I learned about case management with Department, Developmental Disability Division, or what we call DDD, through actually my coworker, who was the student services coordinator at the school I was at. So my son's been eligible since he was 12, and he'll be 31 next month. So going into middle school, he had his ISP. We didn't get a lot of services, but two things I was able to have during that time, because 20 years ago, right, the state had money. There was a lot more money out there for kids with autism in the Department of Ed, but in DDD, I got respite care, which allowed me to pay a caregiver to be with him so that I could either refresh and replenish myself, or I also used it to spend time with my other son, who often got the short end of the stick, if you will, because I was a single parent. And then I also got, Pickle Funds, which was a Project Independent Community Living. Right? That was a score.
So that was before Jordan came along, because we didn't move back to Hawaii until she was 15.
Okay.
And we heard about it from other parents. She did Special Olympics, and she also danced at 24/7 Dance Force's Heartbeat program. And that's why, like, for me, this is why what makes Omana, like what we do great, is we always knew that we got the most information when parents networked. And so Omana was parent-led and parent-run. So we were parents that were sharing information. We're networking with other parents and sharing the resources that we know about. But Jordan got PAB services almost right away. But we were, you know, she was 15. She got PAB, and it really helped our life because I worked so much that someone picked her up after school and kept her until dinner time and taught her community-based safety, you know, and different things like that. And then she came home for dinner.
When you say PAB, that means personal assistant
Program, right? Well, it's a habilitation.
That's
but
habilitation.
that's not with the Department of Education. That's
with DOH, right? That's the Department of Health.
So
or
what do you tell parents today who feel like they need more than just the support they get in school? Is it a financial thing, or what is the criteria to be able to go when you're under 18? It's different, right, than when you're over 18.
Correct. For waiver services, the application process, so you can get in, and we encourage all parents, no matter how old their child, if it looks like that's going to be a need for like lifelong supports, go ahead and get your case management, get in the Department of Health DDD case management. Then you apply for Medicaid waiver, because what Medicaid waiver is it's a contract with the federal government, and they pay for the bulk of the services instead of the state, but they have to be with Medicaid waiver approved agencies, or what we call consumer directed, where we can be the employer and hire employees. If the student is 18 years old and above, it's their income and resources that count, which is also important, not information for parents to know for estate planning, right? They can't have any resource over $2,000. If they're under 18, parents' income and assets do count. So I was never able to get Medicaid for Ian, even though he was eligible medically and all that, because they take it to a review committee. And but I made too much. But at 18, I applied again, and of course he got it because he didn't have anything.
So that's a good reminder. So under 18, it's based on the parent's income, and if they're probably both working, then they probably won't qualify for the extra Department of Health. But if they're over 18, the parent's income does not count anymore. And that's the time to maybe get ready at age 17 and start looking into this, right?
I'd recommend case management. You want to be in DDD at least at the latest by the time they enter high school.
Because your case manager are two different things.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
your
a lot
case
of
manager.
A lot of parents really don't have that clear, because when they're in DOE, you're just working with DOE services. And, you know,
but your case management can come to your IEP meetings. In fact, they should be a part of your IEP meetings, because they help with the transitional part of it, right? When you're transitioning out of high school, which is why Debbie was saying that it's so important to get your case management when you enter high school.
So if you're a working parent and you know your child does not qualify, you can still go sign up for case management and get ready for when they turn 18. Is that what you're saying?
Well, case management doesn't have anything to do with your income. It's the Medicaid waiver services that is connected to your income. And having the case management, it just helps for them to know also where your child is at, because you would do an annual ISP, which is the individualized service plan. I always say support, but it's service plan, right?
Okay.
Whereas, you know, in DOE, you do the IEP. For DDD, you do the ISP. And I think it's just a good idea for them to know where your child is at as well, because as they get older, and when it comes time for them to transition from high school into adult services, there's always already a clear path of what they need and where they're going from high school.
So then it's
just a paper trail.
A paper trail makes a
paper trail.
Yes. Another thing I know, I had a case recently contact Hawaii Autism Foundation that never got a formal diagnosis under age 21. And she said that was a problem too. She wished she had known that, to make sure that they had a diagnosis, in this case of autism, before I think it's age 18, so that they can have that diagnosis the rest of their life, because it becomes a problem when you don't, when you just assume everyone knows, but you don't have the piece of paper with the diagnosis. Do you have any experience in that?
Yes and no. Most of the parents that we're coming in contact with, of course, their kiddos do have a diagnosis because they have an IEP, right? However, it can happen. And we know of a family, their teenager was recently diagnosed. So those things can occur. My husband read to me an article, I think it was on Facebook or something, but a 40-plus-year-old who had always struggled, blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is they went and got a diagnosis. So
Okay.
it's and autism itself is what they call an eligible criteria, right, for DDD services. However, you have to have adaptive scores and this is like a whole nother meeting, but you have to have these scores that are really low in the adaptives. And what you get is always a composite, right? A composite's averaging all the subtests.
Right.
It often doesn't show. And in folks that we know, right, we know that they have a need for this
Right.
type of a service. So it's finding those subtests and making sure that parents understand that. But
The composite
biggest
won't always
thing-
show it, but the subtest will.
Okay,
I think the biggest thing, yeah.
One of the mistakes I know that a lot of parents make, and I made it when I was sitting at the functional test. So functional is how they do things like get dressed and hygiene and can they take the bus
Right.
and all these functional things.
They score their children a little higher, right?
A little
Because
higher.
It's
So
because
for
it's like,
example-
I think they can, right?
I think they can. So someone said, does she get dressed in the morning? And I went, yes. And so they checked that off. And then I went, but I do hold up the pants for each leg.
Right. So she
And
doesn't
then-
do it independently,
And
right?
then I make sure I don't have a snap or a zipper because she can't do that. And then in actuality, the answer was I had given the wrong answer, which harmed
Right.
her. So if
And it does happen all the time, which is why they
Yeah.
often have more than one person fill it out, right?
Okay.
You'll have like the parent fill it out, the teacher fill it out, maybe another caregiver. But a lot of times I think that as parents, we don't realize how much we're doing for our children.
That's right. Yeah.
So when you're filling out those types of forms,
Yeah.
you kind of have to step back and go, if she was doing this completely by herself, if I was not in the room, how much of this would she get done independently? And that's how you should answer those questions.
So when you guys are doing parent support during the school years, then the transition happens. It's supposed to legally start at age 16, but then the last day that they're 21, they leave the school systems. Do you follow them at all as because you've known them for a few years?
Unofficially, I mean, Omana is for preschool to age 22 because, like Debbie was saying, we're funded by the department's, the district's DES, right? But I think unofficially we do. Yeah, Debbie, like we're always kind of
We haven't had anybody get there yet, but yeah.
I mean, but her and I have been doing this for many years, even before we became Omana, and we both have families that we still follow, even though their children have aged out. And I assume that as this goes on, and I hear, you did say the transition process starts officially at age 16, but Debbie and I, we started a preschool group a couple years ago, and we started talking to them about transition at preschool. Like, let's start having these conversations now. And some of these kids are like first and second grade now, and their parents are already like further along than some of the families I see when their children enter high school as a freshman.
That's
so
great.
I think that starting the discussions about transition should start at preschool. I think that it's okay to have those conversations.
So when you say transition, it's like, I know for me, it's very emotional because when you leave school, there's no more school bus. There's no more team of people to call and say, I want this, I want that.
The DOE is 22 years of their life. DOH is a lifetime. It's forever.
Yeah.
So I think being just as comfortable with that system as we are with the DOE is so important.
So what you're saying is having the case manager, even though you're not getting services, but having a case manager from Department of Health that eases the process. You've got someone to talk to about the paperwork to fill out for when they are 18.
And just like understanding that system. I mean, Debbie has been like, she was always my resource, like how we met is that her son was in the classroom I worked in. I was an educational assistant at that time. And we've known each other since then, but I've always been very open about who my child is, right? And every time I had a question, I hit Debbie up, and she's like she has so much information. And it's because she's been through it. She's comfortable in the system because she's been through it. And now that I've been through it, I still am not as comfortable as Debbie is by any means, but I can answer questions when parents ask me, you know, but no, she's been through it. She knows, she's comfortable, and that's how all parents should thrive to be, I think, for me.
Yep.
And what
You
are
have to.
what are the like the three main areas of support would you say you guys are doing the most or have done the most? What can parents reach out to you about?
Well, I mean, we definitely, like, we're a good place to vent out what's going on in your situation. And we like to work on mindful advocacy. We want to give you the tools so that you can advocate for your child in a way where you're building relationships. Because you know, you have to, like, especially if your child is like in elementary school, these are the people you're going to be with for a few years, right? When they get to high school, they're going to be with those people for 6 to 8 years. You need to build relationships so that you know that your child is going to be successful. What else do you think, Debbie?
It's a lot of that. We help them with strategies, but like before their meetings, we do provide one-to-one coaching. I think that's one of the biggest things we do. There's a family we've been working with for a while. I knew them when their children were in early intervention, and they hit us up on Thursdays because they know that's our planning day, right? And that we'll kind of drop everything and give them a 20 or 30-minute quick, like we're doing a Zoom.
Yeah.
And I think that's really beneficial. And then we have helped parents to appeal, give them the tools and the information they need to successfully appeal a decision from the Department of Health DDD division, right? It's not hard, but this is what I tell people.
If you don't know
can't
what
be
you're
a
doing, it's
sheep.
overwhelming. Yeah, but it can be so overwhelming if you have no idea,
And
yes, I did.
Don't be afraid.
I got another email this week, and I try and point them to other helpful, groups and foundations.
Right. And I think that would be the third point, is that we also bring in people who know more than us to talk to our families.
Oh, that's
so
great.
we have guest speakers and stuff. And then lately we've been working on self-care with our families. So we've been, Debbie has a yoga instructor that she works with one-to-one. And so she's brought her into our meetings. And that's been great. We've got great feedback from our families about the self-care portion of
You mean
Omana.
for self-care for the caretakers and
the
parents?
caretakers.
Okay.
Because we know we're caretakers. I mean, like, Cynthia, how often do you do things just for you, right?
No, when it's time to take a walk, I'll just like lie down on a couch because I'm tired,
Right, exactly.
Right.
We're exhausted.
It's going to be a regular, like a 20-minute mini yoga. It's virtual, all virtual, on our Wednesday night parent support group from now through summer.
What I'm hearing is, because you guys are actual parents and you've been through the system, your guys are already out of school, and you've seen from a bird's eye view looking back at school, you make excellent parent support, because when you're in school, you just have a small bird's eye view of what life is. And I think it's great that we have someone to turn to that's going to be more of a long-term view on things.
I know, I just realized that, Debbie, we didn't even talk about how old our children are. They're old.
I can't be 39 anymore because my son will be 31 next month. So yeah, that just doesn't add up. It's funny. He'll ask me how old I am, and he'll be, holy smokers, that's old. It's like, you're out of the will. No.
But have you seen changes for the better over the years from when your children were the age that you're now advising other parents? Have you seen progress?
Sometimes with some things,
I would have killed to have Ian stay in school till 22. He aged out at 20. He's part of the ERK class action lawsuit with the DOE. And we still, we've been made an offer, but we still haven't got anything from it. But it's, he's doing really well, and I'm grateful, but I have to wonder, where would he be if he'd had 2 more years, right? And I look at those services I valued most, but he job trained for 1.5 years through his IEP at our local Safeway. And then when he exited DOE, he was hired 2 weeks later. We did the application, and he was hired by Safeway, and he has been employed by Safeway since he left school. It's enormous supports, right? And And that's why the case management was important, right? At 18, we applied for waiver. So then we were eligible for waiver services. You can't replicate. You can't have waiver services from Department of Health during the school hours, which is sort of they follow sort of a rule of thumb. It's not a
Right.
policy, but like a Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4:30 is under the purview of DOE's responsibility.
Now,
So-
you're not just on the Windward side. You guys live on the Windward side, and you were first born out of the Windward side autism department, but you serve any parent in Hawaii that needs to call you, and how
I think
can they
that
get
was the one blessing out of COVID, is because for
Mhm.
Debbie and I, we always wanted to help more people, but we understood our parameters. And COVID birthed this virtual world where we can now serve anyone. And so we do. Now the CCC has been putting our group times on their email blast so that anyone can RSVP to join our groups, and that's great too.
So how can people get in touch with you? Where would they go? What's your website, or how can they find you?
I can send you our electronic flyer, which has our dates and times, or you can Google actually Omana Parent Support, and we'll pop up. And by the way, Omana means empower, and we want to empower our parents, right? To feel that they have the knowledge and tools and supports and resources. They have people to go to help them, right? And whatever that is. And then our website is on the Windward District. If you go to their actual Windward DOE page,
Right.
that we're on there under
The
family
parent tab, there's like a parent tab, I believe.
It's such another layer here that it feels so comfortable to me, because you're not a government agency per se, you're parents helping other parents.
Mhm.
And that,
Exactly.
I mean, I feel more able to tell you my story about the putting on the pants, but maybe I won't tell that to someone else. But talking to other parents it feels so safe and so supportive. And thank you
Yes.
both for doing this work. And hopefully we'll put this on our website with a link to you, and we'll get the word out to more and more parents.
Thanks for talking to us, Cynthia.
Yeah, Cynthia. And
Bye.
thanks for all you folks are doing. We appreciate
Yes.
it.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Your Saturday
Bye.
videos are fun.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.